went to his hotel room to say goodbye. That was the plan, anyway. I had rehearsed the words in my head all the way from Atlanta to Austin. I knew exactly what I was going to say. I would tell Marcus that I loved him, that I wished things had been different, and that sometimes loving someone meant knowing when to let them go. Then he opened the hotel room door. He looked at me for a few seconds without saying anything, and somehow that made everything I'd rehearsed disappear. "Come in," he said quietly. I should have walked away. Instead, I stepped across that threshold. And if you've ever found yourself standing at a crossroads with someone you love, wondering whether one conversation could change everything, then you may understand what happened next. And before I tell you, do me a little favor. If stories like this speak to you, tap the like button and tell me in the comments where you're watching from tonight. I always love knowing how far these stories travel. Now let me take you back to the beginning. Marcus Reed and I had been together for 6 months. 6 months isn't a lifetime, I knew that. But somewhere between the first terrible joke he told me over dinner and the quiet Sunday mornings when we'd sit together drinking coffee, he had become part of my life in a way I hadn't expected. I was 30, independent, and very comfortable with my own company. I had built a career as a senior brand strategist in Atlanta. I had my own apartment, my own friends, my own plans, and enough confidence to walk into a difficult meeting without wondering whether I belonged there. I liked being that woman. Marcus liked her too. That was one of the things that drew me to him. He never treated my independence like a challenge. He didn't need to prove he was more successful than me. He didn't compete with me. He listened when I talked, remembered tiny things I had forgotten I'd mentioned, and somehow noticed when I was having a difficult day before I ever said a word. He was 32 and had built an event technology company that was growing faster than either of us expected. We were different in some ways, but we fit. Or at least I thought we did. Then Marcus got an opportunity in Austin. It was the kind of opportunity people spend years waiting for. A major expansion, new investors, a larger operation, the possibility of taking his company to another level. I should have been proud of him. And I was, until I discovered that he had already started making arrangements. I remember standing in his apartment, looking at a folder on the kitchen counter. Relocation paperwork, Austin. My stomach sank. "What is this?" I asked. Marcus looked at the folder and then at me. "It isn't final." That wasn't the answer I wanted. "What part of this isn't final?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "I've been talking with the team about the expansion." "You've been talking with them," I said. "Have you been talking with me?" He didn't answer immediately. That silence told me more than his words could have. I wasn't angry because he had an opportunity. I was angry because somewhere along the way, he had started planning a future that included me without actually asking me what future I wanted. And that hurt more than I wanted to admit. "You already decided," I told him. "No. It feels like you did." "Aaliyah, that's not what happened." But I had already started protecting myself. And protecting myself was something I was very good at. I'd learned a long time ago that if you leave first, nobody gets the satisfaction of leaving you. So I told Marcus I needed space. I expected him to call. He didn't. I expected messages. There were none. I expected him to come looking for me. He didn't. At first, I was furious. Then I was hurt. And finally, I became confused, because I had convinced myself that if he truly loved me, he would fight. Instead, he respected what I had asked for. And somehow, that was even harder. A few days later, I learned something I hadn't known. Marcus had rejected one of the company's relocation arrangements. Why? Because the arrangement would have required me to consider leaving my position in Atlanta. He hadn't told me. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or angry. Maybe both. He had been trying to protect my career while simultaneously making a huge mistake. He had made a decision about our future without me. And I had responded by deciding our future was already over, without giving him the chance to explain. That was when I knew I couldn't end things over the phone. So I drove to Austin. Marcus was staying at a hotel while meeting with investors. And that's how I found myself standing outside his door with a suitcase in the hallway and a goodbye speech I'd practiced so many times. He opened the door. "Come in." I stared at him. "I came to say goodbye." "I know." There was no anger in his voice. That almost broke me. Then he stepped aside. "Please, just tonight. No promises, no arguments, just the truth." I walked in. The room was quiet. I set my bag down but kept my coat on. That was how determined I was to leave. Marcus didn't try to stop me. He sat across from me and waited. Eventually, I said the thing I had been afraid to say. "I thought you chose your company over me." He looked down for a moment. Then he said, "I made plans for you before I asked you what you wanted. I didn't expect that." He continued, "I thought I was being practical. I thought I could figure out the business side first and then we'd talk about the rest. And you didn't think I deserved to be part of that conversation?" "I did." "Then why wasn't I?" He looked at me. "Because I was afraid." That answer surprised me more than anything else. Marcus was rarely afraid. He was the man who could walk into a room full of investors and calmly negotiate a deal while everyone else was sweating. But now he admitted he had been afraid of asking me to build a future he wasn't sure he could make perfect. And suddenly, I understood something. He hadn't been trying to replace me with his career. He had been trying to solve our future without realizing that I wasn't a problem to solve. "I should have asked you," he said. "I should have sat down with you before I signed anything." I looked at him. "And what happens now?" He didn't hesitate. "I don't expect you to move to Austin." That wasn't what I expected either. Then he said something I'll never forget. "And I don't want you to stay in Atlanta for me either." I frowned. He smiled faintly. "I need to know what you want, Aaliyah." Not what he wanted, not what his company needed, not what would make the relationship easier. What I wanted. For years, I had believed that asking someone to choose me made me weak. But sitting there with Marcus, I realized something. I had never actually given him the chance to choose me. I'd always been busy proving that I could walk away. I reached across the space between us and touched his hand. He looked down at our hands, then back at me. Neither of us said anything. I leaned toward him. The kiss was quiet. There was no dramatic moment. No perfect music. No certainty about tomorrow. Just two people who had finally stopped arguing with the version of the future they had created in their heads. When we pulled apart, I smiled. Then I remembered something. "We still have a problem." Marcus laughed softly. "Yes, we do. The kiss hadn't fixed Austin. It hadn't fixed our careers. It hadn't answered where we'd live 6 months from now. It had only reminded us why the conversation mattered. Sometimes, the most unexpected love stories are the ones that stay with us long after we've finished hearing them. If you're enjoying this story, you may also enjoy my book, Confession of Unexpected Love. It's filled with romantic stories about unexpected connections, second chances, emotional choices, and the moments that can change everything. It's perfect for a quiet evening, a peaceful weekend, a long journey, or simply those moments when you want to escape into a beautiful love story. You can find Confession of Unexpected Love through the link in the pinned comment. And now, let's get back to us. So we spent the rest of the evening doing something neither of us had done properly before. We planned together. Maybe I could keep my position in Atlanta. Maybe Marcus could establish an Atlanta branch for part of the company. Maybe we'd divide our time for a while. Maybe we'd discover that long distance wasn't sustainable. Maybe we'd find another answer entirely. For the first time, neither of us was asking who would sacrifice more. We were asking how we could build something that respected both lives. At some point, I looked at him and asked, What if we try all this and it still doesn't work? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Then we'll know we tried honestly." There was something about that answer that stayed with me. Not a promise that everything would work, not some perfect declaration that love could solve anything. Just honesty. The next morning, Marcus had his investor meeting. I could have left before he came back. Part of me thought I should, but I stayed. Not because I was helpless. Not because I suddenly needed him to decide my future. I stayed because, for the first time, I knew what I wanted. When Marcus returned, I was waiting in the hotel lobby. He looked surprised. "You're still here." "I am." He smiled. I took a breath. "I'm not moving to Austin right now." His expression changed. "And I'm not ending this." He stepped closer. I continued before I could lose my nerve. "I want 6 months. We try it honestly. You build your business, I keep building mine. We make time for each other, and after 6 months, we decide what comes next." Marcus looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, "6 months? 6 months. And if you decide you don't want this, then I'll tell you. And if you decide you do," I smiled, "then I'll tell you that too." He laughed. And that was the moment I realized something about myself. I had gone to that hotel believing that walking away was the strongest thing I could do. But sometimes strength isn't leaving. Sometimes it's staying long enough to tell the truth. Marcus and I walked out of that hotel together that morning. Neither of us was following the other. Neither of us had given up a dream. We didn't have every answer. We didn't know exactly where we'd be 6 months later. But for once, we weren't making decisions for each other. We were making them together. And maybe that's what love really looked like for us. Not one person disappearing into another person's future. Just 2 people choosing to walk toward the unknown, side by side. Before you go, if this story gave you that feeling of wanting to hear just one more love story, I have something you might enjoy. It's called Confession of Unexpected Love. It's a collection of romantic stories about unexpected connections, second chances, longing, companionship, and the moments when love finds us in places we never expected. It's the kind of book you can keep beside your favorite chair, take with you on a trip, read on a quiet weekend, or open at night when the house is finally quiet and you simply want to disappear into a beautiful story for a little while. And sometimes, the best books aren't the ones we rush through. They're the ones we come back to when we want to feel something. If that sounds like the kind of book you'd enjoy, Confession of Unexpected Love is waiting for you. You'll find the link in the pinned comment. And if you enjoyed spending these few minutes with me tonight, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story. Give this video a like if it touched you. Share it with someone who enjoys a good romance. And turn on notifications so you'll know when the next confession goes live. Until next time, take care of yourself, and never underestimate what one unexpected moment can change.